The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Community Chat with Collin. I am your host, Collin Dias. Today is Tuesday, December 26th, and hope everyone had a very Merry Christmas. And it's getting time for the new year. For this episode, I am joined by Mr. Brian Pearson, Miss Erica Scott Pacheco. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
That's good. For this episode, we're going to get into mainly the rail trail issue, and maybe we'll touch up on some issues with the water deal. A few weeks ago, we had environmental activist Joe Cavallo on the show to speak about the rail trail issue. So we're going to touch up on what has happened since he's been on the show and just go over some points again. This is how we're going to format the show. I'm going to ask the question. Each of you can respond to the question. Whoever wants to go first can go first. I don't really care about that. But first question, please explain to the viewers at home why it is important we preserve the Quequechan Rail Trail without this 2-lane road going over the trail, or why it is such a big deal.
Sure, I'll take that. So I live in the neighborhood of the rail trail in the Flint, and I walk my dog every day. And we've had a fatality not far from my house, actually 2 fatalities. And it's very important that people in the neighborhood have a place to walk that's safe, that there's no cars going around, because both those fatalities were caused by people driving cars. And sadly, we need to avoid all of those tragedies as much as we can. And it's a wonderful resource for the many low-income families in the area. People also use it to get to stores because it does pass by Walmart. I really wish that Walmart had better lighting. You have to go under an underpass if you're walking down Quequechan Street and Quarry Street where they intersect. And that's kind of been a hot spot. I know the Flint Neighborhood Association has tried to address it. And with the trail, it's just so much better maintained and very peaceful and just a really true gift from the city. And I really think we need to protect it.
Mr. Pearson?
Sure. I've looked at a lot of the documents, and one of the things is the environmental notification. And it clearly states in the environmental notification that this trail is designed for people to enjoy away from motorized vehicles. It actually says it in there. And for the city administration, Jason Correa's administration, to even think, not even doing it, but even think of allowing a 2-lane private road to cross the rail trail, a 2-lane private road to run against it, and also push it over to the east. You're going to create 2 90-degree jogs. The engineering firm, FST, they looked at it, they looked at this proposal, and they said it's public safety. Just that one issue alone, creating the 2 90-degree jogs. I'm a cyclist. I'm the chairman of Bike Fall River. I've never seen any bike path, and I've ridden a lot of bike paths, that has a road crossing like that and creating a 2 90-degree jogs for the riders and for the walkers, the pedestrians.
Joe Cavallo is like one of the leading people in this new alliance to save the rail trail, am I correct?
Yes.
And he said in a Facebook post that this alliance has gained legal counsel, which I asked him about. So what is some of your legal goals to stop this easement, possibly even nullifying the easement?
Right now, we've hired one of the best law firms when it comes to environmental laws. They're very familiar with Article 97 and other regulations in the state, and we've also sent up information dealing with the park regulations for the city of Fall River. And our goal is for them to take a look at this. They're looking at all the documents now. We're going to be supplying some more information to our legal counsel. And their goal is to see the different avenues we can take to stop this, this catastrophe that might happen.
So there's a possibility this legal law firm will go to court and possibly try and nullify this?
There's that possibility. There might be things that we can do even prior to that. Because I said one of the things that the city administration did not do was look at the city park board. The city park board, and I'm a former city councilor, the city park board gets all parks and recreational facilities right away. It comes under them. Okay. They did this easement without even putting this before the park board. The park board has to have a public hearing for any change for any park or recreational facility that's over $10,000.
Okay.
This will be at least $400,000 to $500,000 change. So it's obvious to me that just that alone, the city did not do what they were supposed to do.
So this this road over the trail will be $500,000?
Will you figure in the road and probably the set of lights that would have to be put on Brayton Avenue? The DOT in the past said they're not paying for that.
Who would pay for that? Would it be the city?
That's the good question. This whole thing is going to cost a lot of money. Is it truly a private way? Is it truly going to be paid totally by the developer? Or does the city have any intent to put some money in? We're watching that very carefully.
Because if they make the road, that you're just going to have to look into the laws on that, but it is a great question. And
we have, actually, and we're just waiting for that.
Hearing you guys speak already, I'm sure you're not happy with the administration, but I'll ask this question anyway. Out of a 1 to 10, how would you rate the help the Fall River government has given you to combat the rail trail easement as a whole? Not anyone in specific, as a whole. Out of a 1 to 10, you go.
I think that they've given a lot of lip service. Okay. And so in terms of actual actions, I would say there's been really no action or even a negative number, I might rate it, because the Correa administration is trying to veto the override, or trying to veto the easement, which the city council wanted to override the city council's veto of the easement, right? And so actively trying to keep the easement in place, because even if we have lip service promising that there won't be a road, if there's still an easement, where there's an easement, there can be a road, because an easement is granting the legal right to have an egress, point of egress. And so therefore, if the Correa administration is serious about the lip service, then it seems like a no-brainer to me. They'd want to get rid of the easement and support the city council with that.
Okay. 1 being the worst, 10 being they're very helpful. What would you rate them?
Well, let's go quickly back to 2013.
Okay.
In 2013, the developer was asking for this road, this private road. And at that time, the Department of Transportation, the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs in Boston, and FST, the engineering firm, continued to say no, no, no. They denied it several times. Then on December 12th or 11th, of 2013, the city, at that time was under Mayor Flanagan, and the state signed a dual letter saying no, and they listed many reasons why they couldn't do it. Our current mayor keeps on saying the process started in 2013. He never finishes it. He never tells you that the process ended in 2013.
Really?
So I'm with Erica, a -10. When it comes to this city administration, what they've done. They knew, matter of fact, Collin, let me just tell you, they were working on a MOU or an agreement back in January of 2016 with the developer. It was never finalized, but we now know that this mayor in over a year knew about this road. He didn't tell Bike Fall River. He didn't tell the Bicycle Commission. He didn't tell the neighborhood groups. He didn't tell any of the stakeholders. Al Lima, the one that was the spearhead for this, he didn't tell him. So -10.
I think the audience should know at home, Mr. Caballo told us that Mr. Jazio Correa received donations from the private developers of this road. But on to the next question.
And that's a fact. It's not that someone told it. You can go online yourself to the Office of Campaign and Political Finance for the state and see that indeed the Carrigs did make political contributions to Jazio Correa. So that's very easily fact-checked.
Not just Jazio Correa, also Michael Rodriguez as well.
Correct.
But can I add to that? Because as a former counselor, yes, those two gentlemen received donations. But it's up to the elected officials to say that doesn't matter at all. When something is wrong, something is wrong.
Right.
And you don't stand up for something that's wrong. And that's what this administration is doing right now.
Joseph Macy said, despite the order from the city council to nullify the easement, he was not going to go to court. Do you believe that type of talk is insubordinate?
Well, I guess I would kind of question what you mean by insubordinate. If you mean not doing what you're told.
Not following what he's told from a superior.
Right. So look, it's really clear here that there has been ongoing tensions between Corporation Counsel, Joseph Macy, who was a judge, now works in his capacity as a private attorney, and the City Council and the Correa administration. To me, as a citizen, as a stakeholder who lives in the neighborhood, I would hope that my elected officials are fighting for me, because that's what it's all about. They're elected to represent us, the people. It was very disturbing to me to hear the Corporation Counsel say that he would not go to court when one branch of government, the City Council, that's their will, right? I mean, there's 9 of them. They're accountable to us, the people. It really makes me wonder who Joseph Macy is accountable to, because he's not elected by us. He's appointed by Mayor Jazio Correa, and it just had I had a lot of confusion. And insubordination, I'm really not sure, Collin, because I don't know who he's accountable to. That would be my question. To whom is the Corporation Council accountable? Is it to Jazio Correa? In which case, is he Jazio Correa's attorney? Is he acting as the attorney just for the mayor? And in which case, I would say the City Council need their own legal counsel. And they've tried. They've tried this past year to get their own legal counsel. And as I recall, they didn't have any money to do so. They were trying to get some money in the budget. Is that correct? I think they were trying to get $25K or so in the budget, which to me seems very reasonable because, Brian, you're working with an attorney now. I mean, legal fees on average are $250 an hour. And so $25,000 to me seemed very reasonable. And that did not come to pass. Jazio Correa was opposed to that. It did not come to pass. So the way that things are, it definitely leaves me with more questions than answers.
The reason I mentioned insubordinate is because it was mentioned by Richard Cabaceres at the last city council meeting. Well, in the city charter, it says the administration shall act on every order that's passed by the council, and Joseph Macy said he was not going to follow that, despite it being clearly said in the charter. So that's why I mentioned insubordination.
So that's the case. I was only present at part of the meeting, so I didn't see that part.
Yeah, this was more towards.
Yeah. So if that's the case, then yes, and I do believe that Councilor Cabaceres is probably correct because he does a lot of research. So I would trust his analysis there. And in which case, that does seem like troubling insubordination.
Okay. How many individual supporters do you have in your alliance as of now? And does this alliance make up of any neighborhood associations?
Well, it's hard to tell how many exactly are a part of the alliance. When it comes to individuals, we have Bike Fall River, and there's a good group of people there. We have the Fall River Park Advocates. We have the Flint Neighborhood Association. Okay. We have the Niagara Neighborhood Association. I'm missing Green Futures, and I think I'm missing somebody. Oh, the Friends of the Quequechan River Rail Trail. So we have a lot of people, but the city had, the neighborhoods we're talking about low income. And again, as Erica said, that's one of the reasons why to fight for this, because this is also a social justice issue.
Okay. If Cloverleaf Mills starts construction of this road, how will you protest and stop the construction? Will you protest? Because I remember Joseph Macy said he was going to go to City Hall and make a ruckus. Is there any plans of any protest?
Oh, you mean Joe Cavallo?
Joe Cavallo.
I think the first thing we would do, our group, would be call our attorney up right away. And the mayor did promise that if they did something, he would litigate for us. Unfortunately, you have a mayor and a corporation council who are both saying that the easement they sent down was all right. It wasn't. It was a very poorly written easement. I think it was done on purpose. So the councilors could not spot that what was happening. It was ambiguous. It was awful. But there's other things wrong with the easement. Again, the city regulations, and we have Article 97 on the state side. Corporation council would have to go to court and admit that they did a horrible job, that they didn't follow the law, and that's why they're revoking the easement. Because if they went before the court now, the judge would ask, is everything all right? If everything's all right with the easement, why are you coming to court? So they would have to admit that they did a horrible job. I wish they would.
I feel like Joseph Macy would take the easy way out instead the city council forced them to go via order. That's just my opinion.
I don't think he would work very hard either. And
I don't think he would
benefit,
either.
Not at all.
I agree. Do you believe public opinion is for your cause with the rail trail?
Oh, I absolutely do. I attended a rally, very well attended, and I think that the best gauge of that is just walking the trail every day. Like I said, almost every day I walk my dog there, right. And you see families, you see people exercising, you see people biking, running, jogging. You don't see that anywhere else in the Flint. Sadly, with the state of public affairs or public safety, it's really not safe to be jogging down with headphones in your ears on Pleasant Street. And I drive down Pleasant Street to work every day. And I see there's a lot of cars running through stop signs, not paying attention, people texting. And so again, like, it's not safe for people to be walking, sadly, on that thoroughfare. So I think that it's absolutely, there's a lot of public support for the trail because people are using it. I think this was a case of if you build it, they will come, and they certainly have came. And I think people enjoy their time on the trail and they want to see it preserved. Right.
Would you like to answer that question?
It's a gem in the middle of the city. I was actually in the beginning, way back, I think it was the late 90s, early 2000s, when we actually did a charrette up at the ATMC building. And Al Lima showed his proposal. We had state officials down there. And at that time, I don't think anybody believed that we were going to get this done. I don't even think I believed it. And then things happened. There was funds available, and the city jumped at it at the time. And it is incredible. As Erica says, the children, the parent, the families, the kids love the waterfowl. They look at the fish, the birds. It's incredible when you walk that. And it's in the middle of the city. So people are so surprised when they actually get out there.
Okay.
You can see ducks, you can see turtles, frogs. I think that a lot of those kids, it's their only real opportunity to see that. And it really is a hidden gem just because the way that the marsh is. It doesn't seem like you're in the city because a lot of that is hidden by the marshy grasses.
Yep.
What do you think is the biggest obstacle in your way right now with your alliance trying to preserve the trail? Like, what's mainly in your way? Is it the administration? Maybe anyone in particular? Paul Carrig and
I'm hoping that the Carrigs, and I understand, they're developers. They're looking out for their self-interest. I totally understand that. But I hope that they realize that the people love this, and what they're planning to do will ruin part of the rail trail. So I'm hoping that they sit back, because they've done a great job in their building, and I've told them that. I hope they sit back and say to the city, listen, we'll agree to take the easement off. That's what I'm hoping.
Okay. I wanted to get into a few questions about another environmental concern facing our city, which you may know a lot more about. The controversial water deal, like selling our drinking water. Not many people, it's not as popular as the rail trail issue. And why do you think it should be? Like, why do you think this deal is bad for our community? And just maybe explain what's going on for the people at home.
Yeah, great question. So, starting at least in April of this year through the fall, Jason Correa's administration was in negotiations with the attorney Mark Russo, who represents Invenergy, which is a power company that wants to build a $1 billion fracked gas and diesel burning plant in Burrillville, Rhode Island, which is in the northwestern part of Rhode Island near Massachusetts and Connecticut, in that part of the state. So what does this have to do with us all the way in Fall River? Well, the state board in Rhode Island that approves these facilities requires them to have 3 water sources. So a primary water source and then 2 secondary water sources. So 3 water sources in order to get the permits. So the permits don't come from the town of Burrillville. They come from the state. And almost every town in Rhode Island said no. About 80% of all towns in Rhode Island have passed resolutions actively condemning the plant, against the plant, as well as neighboring ones in Connecticut and Mass. And therefore, that sent Invenergy really scrambling to find primary and secondary water sources. And it led them all the way to us in Rhode Island. We're over an hour away. And very secretive fashion, without the city council, without anyone really being aware of this, Jason Correa's administration pushed through a contract with the water board. And I say push through because they didn't even know who the water was being sold to, because this attorney Mark Russo for Invenergy is also got a private transport company, Ben Water, involved. So he's the attorney for Invenergy and for Ben Water, the same man. So he got Ben Water to be like a middleman. So our contract is with Ben Water, but the first page of the contract says Ben Water is trucking it to the Invenergy plant. So we know that's where it's going. And how did we find out about this? Well, actually, the city not only didn't tell the city council, but they actually covered it up, like literally covered it up, because there are public filings about this whole permitting process, and the name of Fall River was actually blacked out or redacted. So there was no way of knowing our city's involvement until a Good Samaritan leaked the contract in late October, leaked the contract to some Rhode Island activists who have been opposing the plant. And that is when our city's involvement came to be known, because finally we had an unredacted copy. And it was really shocking because the other 2 sources of water in Rhode Island, there was a lot of confusion, like they're going all the way to Mass, and they're selling our drinking water to support this dirty power plant that is really a bad deal for the people of Rhode Island. It's a bad deal for us because the pollution from that plant the wind goes east to west. It would come to Fall River. And it's just a really bad precedent to be entering into multi-year contracts to sell our drinking water, which is one of our few natural resources. And so that also leaves me with a lot of questions. If it was a good deal, then why didn't the administration celebrate it? Why was it all covered up and redacted?
The mayor did make a Facebook post celebrating the deal, but it was very vague.
And it was after it was leaked. So yeah. So after the fact, well, I think because he was getting a lot of criticism, people were like, "What do you mean you're selling our water?" And so at that point, after it was leaked,
you're trying to make it sound like it's a good thing,
right?
It's really not.
That's what they call spin.
Yeah, you're right. No. Do you feel like this deal will embarrass our city with the outside world, especially environmental groups?
Well, we've already seen that meetings, the 2 public meetings we've had 20 or 30 people from Rhode Island and about 10 to 15 folks from Fall River show up. Everyone uniformly opposed. There's been no one speaking in favor of this deal, and anyone has been welcome to speak. So I do think it's embarrassing. It shows that we're not being a good neighbor, because the Rhode Island activists, I mean, they were there for us when we were fighting the LNG plant in Fall River, which really would have been a disaster for our city. And they stood with us. And so now I think we need to return the favor and stand with them.
No, you're right. What do you know all the specific groups that have been involved in combating this specific water deal still? And like, what have the groups done so far as a whole to combat this? You said the public meetings, like what else?
Yeah. So in Fall River or in general?
In general for this, in Fall River, but just to stop the
whole
sale
thing.
of water.
Yeah, great question. So there's a number of groups, some groups that we're familiar with, some groups that we're not, but the groups that banded together and are working with the Conservation Law Foundation in Boston, and they are currently suing the city of Johnston, which is supposed to be the primary water source, and it's looking like that's going to fall apart because it's looking like they never really had the authority to sell the water. And similarly in Johnston, it was a deal done in secret. Their city council didn't know about it. It was just done with the mayor, which really makes you wonder, like, what are you hiding? If this is a great deal, then you should be singing it from the mountaintops and the rooftops. The other secondary water source is the Narragansett Indian tribe in Charlestown, Rhode Island, that has a lot of dysfunction with their leadership. Their tribal council didn't know about it. And so the towns of both Johnston and Charlestown have filed and gotten status as an intervener, which means it's a formal stakeholder in the permitting process. It doesn't mean you support it. You could be supported, oppositional, you could be neutral. It just gives you a seat at the table in the whole permitting process. Now, sadly, Fall River hasn't done that, and time is really running out. And last week, we saw the Committee on Health and Environment try to pass a resolution for us to file as an intervener, and that unfortunately got tabled. And to be frank, I would be very doubtful if in 2018 they, even if the city council gets it together and says we want to be an intervener, if it gets approved by the Energy Facility Siting Board of Rhode Island, because it's really late at this point. And why is it so late? Well, because we didn't know about it. Because the contract was signed back in August, then our name was redacted, and it wasn't until late October, because someone, a good Samaritan, felt the need to have this come to light, that we even learned about it.
Okay. What would you like to tell the viewers at home for both your respective alliances and what you're pushing for? What would you like to tell the people at home, like why they should join the Alliance to Save the Rail Trail, and why they should join your fight to stop this bad water deal, and what can people do at home to help, like, solve these issues? Would you like to go first?
Well, quickly, what they could do is if they go to www.greenfutures.org, you can donate to the legal fees that we're going to incur with the attorneys in Boston. And if they want, if they go on Facebook, there's also the Fall River Bike Committee web page on Facebook, and you can join, and we always try to keep people informed of what's going on there.
Okay.
Yeah, I would really encourage you to contact your city councilor and just let them know that you have so many concerns and want the city council to make a stand. They have the option to pass a resolution against the plant, which I think would be smart, because then even if our city administration have got us into this multi-year bad deal, at least we can say, well, our city council stood up for us and passed a resolution, joined with the 80% of neighboring towns and passed a resolution against it. And also, I think it's worthwhile to reach out to Mayor Jazel Correa as well. I mean, the good thing about being a small city is that we have the ability to have supposedly representative government where our elected officials are really responsive to us. So I think if he hears from people, and I know people have told me that they've contacted him, they've emailed, they've called, they said that this is not a good deal, we shouldn't be getting involved, it's really the bad direction for the city. So I think he needs to hear that. He needs to hear your voice.
We'll see if he listens. I just wanted to thank Mr. Pearson and Miss Erica Scott for coming on my show today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the audience at home. I'll see you next week, everyone. Have a great day.